What's up, you amazing people? I hope you're having a fantastic day. You are, of course, watching and listening to the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, here on The Kevin Lee Show. And I am your host, Kevin Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know what the DDT is all about, let me take a moment to explain. You see, it's a show that airs live at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and it's where I get to spend 30 minutes telling you, the viewer, all about the things that bother me today. What do I get out of it? That's easy. It's cathartic. Why should you tune in? That's even easier. It's entertaining. Sound like a fair trade? Good. Let's get to it. Hello, friends, and welcome to another wonderful episode, at least hopefully, of the Daily Dirty 30 here on The Kevin Lee Show. Today is Wednesday, right? Yes, Wednesday. So let's call it a happy Wednesday. Today on this episode, we are going to be having a little bit of fun. Now, I know recently we've done a lot. Well, okay, let me scratch that. It's going to be fun, but it's not all going to be positive and happy, unfortunately. But we'll try to make it as happy and as we possibly can. Yeah, we'll go with that. That works. Essentially, we're going to be covering 4 stories today that more or less have something in common. I wonder if you can guess what that might be. Oh, yeah, America needs a timeout. And by that, what I mean, very simply, is that America needs a timeout. We need to go sit in the corner and think about what we've done. And I don't mean that from a coronavirus situation or a Black Lives Matter situation or anything of the sort. Just in general, we're not acting like adults anymore. In fact, we are acting far from adults. Literally, it's unbelievable the amount of childishness that's out there. And I think it's going to be obvious by the time I finish this, because let me just give you a real quick idea of what I'm going to be covering today. So first off, we're going to have a reporter that should be thinking before he speaks. Second off, we're going to be having an activist who should be thinking before he speaks. Then we're going to start talking about someone who got canceled, who shouldn't have got canceled because people should have thought before they acted. And then last but not least will be a wild card, because why the hell not? That being said, let's get to the crux of it, shall we? As a quick reminder to everybody, in case you're not certain where you're at and why you're here, you are watching the Daily Dirty 30 on The Kevin Lee Show. Now, this show airs Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Please adjust accordingly. Now, we cover a variety of stories. I try to keep things upbeat and fun. And I would love to do it even more so, and I'm going to work on that. But we've hit a few snags because, 2020. That being said, we're going to have a few good stories for you today. Now, the first one we are going to be talking about, again, was the media. And more importantly, perhaps the media needs to slow down its reporting. And the reason why I say that is because there is a reporter, I believe he's with MSNBC, named Chris Hayes. And he tweeted out a story that a trans female was kidnapped by Trump's federal agents. The only problem is there's a few problems with that. So we'll go over it real quickly after we watch it, right? So I think it's important that we are able to, watch it together so we get a better idea of what exactly I'm talking about. And from there, we'll just tackle it, right? So let's get to it right now. I'm also going to tell us right now, because there's going to be people at home or in their cars or wherever listening to this and not watching it. Because of that, I'm going to give a little bit of commentary as we go. So please pardon my voice, if you will. Right now, we are coming up on an intersection in New York City where it looks like someone is being tackled / apprehended by people who are in mostly street clothes, it looks like. And there's a minivan involved and a bunch of protesters around. That's kind of the noise you're hearing, is the protesters yelling and screaming. Now there's people approaching the officers, trying to kind of interfere, but they're being chased off by the officers. At least, which is led to believe to be officers, because they're generally undercover plain clothes. And they are taking someone, they're putting them into a minivan. Now, at this point, it should be pointed out that regular police who are part of the police patrol, the bicycle patrol, came up, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen of them, it looks like, with their bikes, and they're now using their bikes as deterrents to deflect the protesters away and to get some separation between them and the other quote-unquote officers that are apprehending this person and putting them into a minivan. Okay? So they've got the person in the minivan now. The other cops are trying to run interference. They've got pretty much everyone in the minivan that needs to be. Now one final officer is getting in, doors closed, and they drive off. Ta-da! And again, like I said, Christopher Hayes had reported that this was indeed as more or less a kidnapping, is what I believe he called it. A couple problems, like I said, with this. So if you just see the video, or even if you were there in person and you just walked up last second, you would be like, what the heck is going on? I have no doubt, right? I mean, it's human nature. You're seeing something happening. You're seeing a fellow citizen being taken in by what you can only assume are police officers / federal agents apprehending somebody, taking them down to the ground, picking them back up, bringing them into the minivan. It's not even a good shot of that, so you don't know what actually transpired between them. And this also started after the apprehension had already begun, because by the time the video starts, the person is already going to the ground as they're trying to, I believe, handcuff them. So again, if you see this just for what it is, you'll be, I would assume you'd be somewhat surprised, right? Because let's face it, it's surprising to see someone just taken down in the middle of the street like that in the middle of the day in New York City. Especially by people who you can't necessarily identify because they're not wearing street clothes. These aren't street officers. These aren't guys in uniform. These are people wearing shorts and t-shirts and polo shirts and, jean shorts and gym shoes. And they're driving a minivan. So it's kind of weird. I don't disagree with that in the slightest bit. The problem is, the reason why I say perhaps media needs to slow down its reporting and its tweeting is because, let's be honest, this wasn't a kidnapping. This wasn't even a situation in which it was Trump's troops, if you want to call them, or the federal agents who were doing the apprehension. This is actually people from Chicago, from the New York Police Department. These are all local people. This is all New York. This is an undercover unit that they have that goes and apprehends people who are having warrants for their arrest. This is nothing that actually is new with this whole 2020 and all the riots and the protests. This is actually an old practice of theirs. And in fact, I know this because the mayor of New York City came out to explain what had been happening. So these were all New York police officers who were doing the apprehension. It was indeed for someone who was wanted on a warrant or even multiple warrants for damage to public property and police property, I believe specifically. And this was all known information, but Chris Hayes, for whatever reason, didn't notice it. Now, I don't know if he had someone in the office say, hey, look at this. See, this is horrible. And look at what Trump's people did. And he just reacted. And again, that's the point. We need to slow down. If you are a reporter, if you claim to be a reporter or a journalist, and you have influence in any way, shape, or form, even if you're not on TV, even if you don't have your own show, and especially if you do, just do a little backstory first, right? We found that situation out with Garrett Foster yesterday. A lot of people thought he was a shooter. A lot of people thought that he was the aggressor, that, he had tried to, there was reports that he had tried to carjack the guy. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Now, again, you can still make your debate about if Garrett Foster was at fault for himself getting shot because he approached the car holding a gun. I get that. But that was about the only thing that he did that was quote unquote questionable. But early reports came out saying that he was this crazy Antifa activist, and he was trying to rob this guy's car and threaten this guy and try to hurt him. And he shot 5 times. He never shot his weapon. Okay, same idea. This person, again, if you saw the situation out of context, you might look at it and go, okay, this is a situation that we need to look into because something here is not right. Well, true, but no, because this person was wanted. And a lot of people say, well, if they had a warrant out for the arrest, why didn't they just go to their house and arrest him quietly? Problem with that is that it's been reported, and again, this is all alleged because this is what's been reported, that this person was actually homeless, and they were homeless activists. Or at least in the sense that they slept on people's couches, not that they actually were necessarily sleeping in the streets, but they did not have a home or residence of their own. So the police identified them, matched up for the warrant, decided to apprehend and take them into custody. That's it. This wasn't some kidnapping. This wasn't some Trump troop invasion. This was simply New York police officers doing their job. That's why I say the media perhaps needs to slow down in its reporting. Fair? I think it's fair. Next story up is going to be, now I did entitle this one, Are Liberals Beginning to Lose Their Minds? And I still stick by that title. Excuse me, hold on. Apparently I didn't drink enough water before this. Or it's the end of the day and I've already used up all my words. I do not know. But that being said, I did entitle this, Are Liberals Beginning to Lose Their Minds? Because I have seen a majority of people losing their minds on the internet who are left-leaning or even complete leftists. Now, that does not mean that there are not people on the right who are doing the same. I just don't think they're doing it in the same numbers as those on the left. Now, I'm sure, depending upon what media sources you watch, you might be like, oh my God, you're insane. All CNN and all MSNBC and all my local news and all these people who ever show are people on the right, freaking out and not wearing masks and doing that. And there are those people. But when you're living in an echo chamber, chances are all you're going to know is one side. So I would give you a recommendation that I received 15 years ago, is to make sure to diversify your consumption of media. Make sure you're getting stuff from the left, from the right, local, national, and even international. Try BBC, try Al Jazeera, try somebody else. See what else is going on. See not only in the world, but even what the reports of going on in your own country or maybe even your own city from a perspective outside of your one trusted source. Might be surprised. But again, this was an example of a liberal, and I'm saying someone on the right could easily be just as losing it as this guy is. And you can tell he's stressed. That's the thing that really bothers me about this. And by that, what I mean is he is confronting a woman that he's upset with. And there's, again, the beginning of the incident is almost never caught on video. And this one is not caught on video either. Because of that, it does kind of hamper the context. We don't know if he said something mild and she responded in a way that he did not like. All we know is where the filming picks up at. And I feel very sorry for this man. You could tell by the end, they kind of try to make a connection, try to relax a little bit, but he's just so wound up. He's so worked up. He just can't take it. And that's why I think it's important for you to see this, because this could be you, and you could be on the left, or you could be on the right, or you could just be an independent who's lost their mind because they're tired of 2020, and they're tired of controversy, and they're tired of headaches and riots and protests and lockdowns and everything else. I don't know. But I thought this would be interesting to watch, because a man confronts a black woman and accuses her of her not really being black. You'll see. It pretty much takes care of itself rather quickly, if you will. All right, here we go. Let me get the banner off the screen so we can, oops. I'm so confused.
You're betraying Black Lives Matter.
I'm black.
Yeah, but that's not.
You're white.
You're not black on the inside. I'm more black than you on the inside at this particular point. Yeah. Oh,
You're black.
there were people during the times of slavery who enabled the slavers. You're on the wrong side, ma'am. I promise you. You are my sister. I am you standing here. I promise you who I am. You're me standing
Come on,
here. Mind
Come
bump. No comment.
Come on. Social distance. Come on.
We just did.
All right.
The very first Americans were protesters. Protesters were the very first people that died for this country.
Sir, what's your profession?
I'm Jesus Christ, you tool.
Okay. So for those listening at home, obviously the male voice was a white man who was dressed in some very interesting attire. And the other woman speaking was a black woman who actually is African American. I believe she is from Nigeria, and she's in the news for other reasons as well. But I did think it was very interesting to kind of show that interaction between a liberal, or a person who claims to be liberal, and someone who is allegedly the target of their intended purposes of helping and saving, and yet arguing with them, telling them that they're not really black. You know, that he's more black than she is, if you will, which is a huge insult considering he's an old white man or older white man. I don't even know what the cutoff is for old anymore. I mean, he could be, he's got a weird head bandana thing on if you're not being able to see this. And he's got a face mask that's covering from his neck all the way up to his eyes and wrapped around his head. So you can't see much, but a couple times he takes his mask down when he's screaming, which doesn't make any sense because isn't it supposed to stop the droplets? Isn't that why you're wearing it? Yeah, but
My profession.
Let's go back to the front there. Let's go back and just watch the first like 20 seconds again. Okay, listen to this. If you're at home, listen quietly. Listen to what he says. Listen to what she says. Ready?
You're betraying Black Lives Matter.
I'm black.
Yeah, but that's not.
You're white.
You know, you're not black on the inside. I'm more black than you on the inside at this particular point.
I'm sorry. He just said, I'm more black than you on the inside at this particular point. Like it fluctuates. Like sometimes you're more black or less black or more white or less white. Like, really? Is this the world we want our kids to grow up in? Is this the world we want to live in? Is this normal? Is this good? Is this okay with you? I mean, you can kind of tell. I mean, you could just tell he's just so frustrated. And you can tell she's frustrated, and she's a personality and a half and then some. If you don't believe me, look up Demon Sperm. It's the same woman. Yes, you heard that correct, by the way. And no, I'm not going to repeat it. But yeah, it's a trip, to say the least. Yeah, that's kind of what happened there. So again, and if you're watching the video, and if you haven't, and you're listening to this on podcast, I recommend you go and watch this one episode and, watch this section where you can actually see them interacting and you can see the frustration on his face and because you can hear it in his voice, but you really need to see it. He's holding an umbrella. Again, I don't know if it's because it's sunny or it's because he's like one of these Antifa guys who are trying to protect their identity or use it for protection, or I don't know. But it's just something that's occurring in the middle of the day. So it is sunny out, so maybe he's just using it because he doesn't want to get exposure to, UVA and UVB rays and all that good stuff, or bad stuff, or whatever. So that's possible. But it's a trip. And the funny thing is, I've actually seen things like this in real life not recently, in the past, a long time ago. And I'm just going to do a little PSA here. If you believe, as a white person, or even as a black person for that matter, that you are more black than the person across from you or more white than the person across from you, when obviously it doesn't match your quote unquote race, which isn't even really a thing, because if you look at it scientifically, we're all the same race. There is only one race. We're humans. There's a human race. And beyond that, it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with melatonin. But we don't want to go there right now. We want to keep this more positive and upbeat, right? It's Wednesday. It's hump day. Let's get over the hump and be happy. Right. Yeah, so that was a little crazy. So that was liberals losing it. Now we're going to get a little serious tone just for a few minutes. And I don't want to read the whole thing. But there's a columnist for the Chicago Tribune. His name is John Cass. And I'm in the Chicago area, so I'm going to report a lot of Chicago things because I'm super familiar with it. But he was recently canceled. Now, the thing is that he was a popular columnist. He's very much a centrist. He has some right leanings, some left leanings, but he's not one or the other. And he's very level headed, and he always writes a lot of good articles. Well, let's see if I have this pulled up here properly. Let's get this. Oh boy. I didn't know if I did this one. Okay, 9:21. There we go. Got it. All right, so we'll pull this one up real quick. So it says, columnist John Cass has defied cancer culture at the Chicago Tribune after members of the Journalists Union attacked him for criticizing left-wing billionaire George Soros and his backings of progressive prosecutors across the country. So again, I don't have a lot of time to go into this, but I do recommend you do just, do an internet search for columnist John Cass or Chicago Tribune John Cass, Kass. It's an interesting story because what happened is he wrote a story about George Soros's influence and his backing and the money he's literally pumped in to DA elections and political elections, not in his area, all over the country. We're talking for hundreds upon hundreds of candidates. And he got smarter over the years and didn't just do it for general candidates. He did it for important ones, for mayors, for DAs. People who had the most influence. So his buck would stretch further. And these are things that he stated, that John Cass stated in his original article, that very much had, these were all factual, proven things that he had done. Because Soros doesn't deny the fact that he supports these candidates because it's something he believes in, and that's his American right. If you believe in the Democratic Party and you want to support Democratic candidates all over the country, and you have the money to do it, then God bless you, do it. I'm not picking on George Soros, to be completely honest. I mean, regardless what you think of the man, I'm not telling you one way or the other that he's right or wrong. What I'm telling you is that John Cass was ostracized because he criticized George Soros. Now, there's some reports that maybe George Soros actually, quote unquote, put a hit out on Cass and said, well, now that as soon as he heard about this article, he wants him gone. Now, John Cass has been around for a long time in the city of Chicago. In fact, he took over one of the most coveted positions at the Tribune. It was the lead columnist on what's called Page 2. It won't make a lot of sense to you unless you're local, but that is a big deal to be holding that spotlight in the Chicago Tribune. And it's a place of honor, and he's been there for years, and he was just thrown like that. Now, they didn't fire John Cass. What they did was they demoted him. Let's see. So John Cass, in response, wrote another article after he was demoted. He was a lead columnist on Page 2. And let's see if I can read something here real quick. So he refused to apologize in his updated article, his next column, and he defies left's cancel culture. It says Soros's influence on these races is undeniable and has been widely reported. But in that column, I did not mention Soros's ethnicity or religion because people were using the fact that he is a Jew, that obviously John Cass must be racist against Jews, even though he mentioned nothing about Soros's ethnicity or his religion. Now, you'd think that before wildly accusing someone of fomenting bigoted conspiracy theories, journalists on the union's executive board would at least take the time to Google the word Soros funding and local prosecutors. So Cass finished off his article, I will not apologize for writing about Soros. I will not bow to those who wrongly defamed me. I will continue writing my column. My goodness. Excuse me. So it's an interesting story. He's an interesting character. And I think it would behoove you to learn as much as you could about this situation, about what's going on. So again, his name is John Cass, John. His last name is Cass, Kass. At the Chicago Tribune, just do a quick search and just read the first couple of things that pop up. I think you might find it intriguing. We are already at almost 24 minutes. So, time flies when you're having fun or when you get old or something along those lines. The last story we're going to get to is going to be something that, it's going to be something that is interesting. And I say this is kind of my wild card because it's talking about Kodak. Now, Kodak could be a bear. It's not a bear. Beer? Whatever. It's not talking about the dip or the smokeless tobacco, I think, is a Kodak brand or something. It's not that. This is actually talking about the film company and the camera company, Kodak. Why are they in the news? I mean, Kodak hasn't been around in like forever, right? Now, ever since digital cameras came out, Kodak has been literally in the dust. And even if you grew up with Kodak, chances are you might think, they're probably out of business by now. I haven't heard anything about them. Well, I can assure you, they're actually not out of business. Not in the slightest bit, to be honest with you. My bad. Kodak is actually this one. Let's cross over. Yay, I got it right. Woo. All right, so Kodak just received $765 million from the U.S. government under the Defense Production Act to aid in the production of key generic drugs. So let me repeat that. Kodak, the film/camera company, which is now known as a one-time photography leader, won a $750 million loan from the U.S. government under the Defense Production Act to aid in the production of key generic drugs. So that's right. People who make... Now, I know what you're thinking. If you're old school like me, perhaps maybe you had a little film canister you used to keep some drugs in, but it's not that kind of drugs. These are generic drugs. These are going to be things that are probably life-saving, life-maintaining drugs. They're going to be generic. I haven't seen anything that actually states what these generic drugs are going to be. And this is... So this, this is kind of a good thing, I think, because I believe... In when a company can help out, when an industry can help out, they should, like we did when we needed masks and we needed hand sanitizers, we needed all these things. All these companies who didn't normally make these things quickly equipped themselves to be able to make them, and they started producing them, right? But do you want someone producing in key generic drugs that when they've never done it before? Like, are you okay with this? Would you take drugs if you knew it was from Kodak? And will you know it's from Kodak? Like I have one prescription. That's all I get, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've gone in over the last year, 2 years, and they'll be like, oh, sir, just so you know, your manufacturer changed. Now, it doesn't say who the manufacturer is, but they're just letting me know because the pill might look a little different. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm going to be a little hesitant now. Now, when I go in to get my medicine, I'm going to be like, well, can I find out who the manufacturer is? Because I don't want Kodak. I mean, is that wrong of me? Is that like un-American, or is that just like snobby of me to be like, well, I don't want these drugs because they're from some company that makes film? Is that wrong? I don't know. I don't think it is. I mean, it could be. I mean, I know we should give them a chance, but it's like, it's weird, right? Like, that's like saying, well, McDonald's is going to start producing Advil. Would you take Advil? I probably wouldn't, right? Now, if Kodak is going to start producing, and it says key generic drugs, we're not talking like one drug, key generic drugs, whatever those are, I do not know. And trust me, I'll be doing my research on this going forward, but this was just announced yesterday, I believe. But I heard about it today. And not only that, even the loan that they keep saying, I don't actually know if it's a loan. And the reason why I say that is because it seems almost like it's a incentive for them to start switching over to drug production. So it's not like they're going to start producing next week. It's going to be 6 months, 9 months down the road, whatever it is. And they're probably going to have to buy equipment, and that's what this loan is for. And I don't think they actually have to pay the loan back as long as they produce drugs. Yeah, that's kind of weird. No, I didn't think it was actually that weird when I first read it, but now that I've got it going back through and my little hamster on the wheel going around in my brain, I'm a little worried about that. I mean, what other companies out there are producing key prescription generic drugs? Huh? I don't know. I think I have to look into that. Especially considering how many times, I mean, I'm honest with you. I take one medication. It's not a difficult medication. It's been around for forever. And I take a very low dose of it, but I'm supposed to take it. And I can't tell you, like in the last year, 18 months, 2 years, I probably had 3 times, and because I have to go in like every 3 months to get my prescription. And every time I do, I would say like every other time, they're like, oh, your manufacturer changed. I wonder who the hell makes my drug. It makes me nervous. Oh my goodness. I have to do research on this. I think we all should. I think we should spend time figuring out where the hell our drugs are coming from. Because if Kodak's doing it, who else is doing it? You know, it's crazy, crazy times. Well, and just like that, people, it is almost 30 minutes. We have to get out of here. We have to go. I know you're sad, but that's okay. We'll live. But I hope you do have a good rest of your day. And I hope you have a good night and good sleeping or wherever you might, because you might be halfway across the world. This might be the afternoon for you tomorrow. I do not know. But I hope you're having a good day. And I will be back here tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern. Please join us and let's have more fun. See you then. Bye-bye.